Welcome to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with a wide range of music personalities, from rock and roll Hall of Famers to Grammy winners and today's rising stars. Recorded in St. Louis, Missouri, now here's your host, Aaron Perlitz of Atomic Junction.
Welcome back to the Loadout Music Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Perlitz. Today we're talking to a true road warrior in rock and roll. He's fronted the Scream, the Union, Mötley Crüe, played in Ratt, and of course is frontman of the Dead Daises, who have a terrific new blues album coming out. We are thrilled to welcome John Corabi to the show. John, what's happening, man?
Not just hanging out on this incredibly beautiful sunny afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee.
Is that where do you make your home in Nashville, or are you just there for music purposes?
I've been here since 2006.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how Nashville, regardless of genre, has really become kind of the center of the music universe in the U.S. at least.
Pretty much, man. It's really weird. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Tom Kiefer's probably the godfather of everybody that lives out here now, because he was here in, God, I think 1990 or 92 or something like that. But I moved out in 06 from L.A. I was just kind of over the traffic and dealing with failed relationships, etc. And I came out here to write music a couple times and kind of fell in love with it. Unfortunately, now everybody else has figured out what Nashville's all about, and now it's exploding into quite the metropolis, to be honest with you. And I'm not really sure if I'm digging it anymore.
Yeah. I know John Oates, who's a Philadelphia homie, he lives in Nashville now. He has for probably about 10 years. And I remember when he went out there, he told me, and we've discussed this on the show as well, that it was remarkable to him the quality of musicianship that you find on the street in Nashville, and obviously, recording studio session guys that he found himself having to improve the quality of his playing to keep up.
Yeah, I remember one of the first visits I had here, and I was with a gentleman named Gary Hannon, who's a songwriter, and a gentleman named John Michael Montgomery, and then also Steve Cropper. And we were just kind of bar hopping a little bit. And I was just kind of blown away. I'm like sitting watching these guys just play, country covers and some rock and roll. And I was checking the guitar players out, and I'm like, holy shit, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're like, whatever, he's a hack. And I'm like, if that's a hack, dude, I don't even want to know who's talented out here. But yeah, it was weird. It was like all these amazing studios, session players, but even songwriters, producers. So, I do hate the fact that it's growing as fast as it is, but I love it here. It's really, Nashville had this thing. It was like the smallest big city, you know what I mean, in the world, whatever.
Yeah.
But it truly now it is like, it's crazy. Like everybody I know has moved from LA. Vince Neil lives here. Mick Mars lives here. Derek St. Holmes, Tom Peterson, Steven Tyler's got a place here. Kid Rock, Justin Timberlake and his wife live just south of Nashville. So hold on, I'm getting another call. Let me hang that up. And yeah, so it's crazy. And I just saw. So Justin Timberlake owns a club here. And now I just read a thing that Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, I saw that.
are opening a nightclub in Nashville, like on the Strip. So it's becoming quite the mecca, man. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, with Cropper's been on the show before, and I don't think people appreciate. I mean, everyone knows his history for the most part, but just how much greatness that dude has touched in his career. I mean, it goes well beyond his stuff at Stax and, from The guys he's produced even over the last 30 years is pretty amazing. The dude has a pretty good sense of who can play.
Yeah, and it was weird. One of the first, it's unfortunate I don't have it. I really wish I had it, but there was like a little glitch. But when I first met Steve, there was this, I don't know if he owned it or I know a friend of mine, Eddie Gore, owned the studio. Uh, or maybe they both owned it. I don't know what the deal was, but I came out here to do some writing. I met Steve Cropper. I had met him prior to that as well. But we came in and I was just kind of sitting in the back and we were getting tones. I had a couple session guys come in on some songs that I was going to record. And I started goofing off in the back of the room while they were getting sounds and I was playing something. And Cropper turned around and he goes, "Hey, man, what is that?" And I go, "Oh, it's just this idea I've been kicking around." I said, I got a melody and everything. I just don't have any lyrics for it. So he picked up the phone and called up that gentleman I said earlier, Gary Hannon. Picked him up. He said, "Get down here." Gary came. We knocked out some lyrics together and then went and recorded it. And it was crazy. I had a session drummer, session bass player. I can't for the life of me remember their names, but I had Audley Freed on guitar and Steve Cropper. And we recorded 3 tracks and we had an unfortunate mishap. Uh, the engineer kept saving everything, but for some reason there was a thunderstorm, lightning thunderstorm, and the lights flickered, and we lost all 3 sessions.
Oh, wow.
All 3 songs. Yeah, so we were like, "God damn it!" But yeah, now I tell friends, I go, "Yeah, man, I did this session with Audley Freed and Steve Cropper," and they're like, "Yeah, sure you did. I'm
Where's the
sure
proof,
you did."
man?
Yeah, where's the proof, brother? So whatever.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of go back to early in your life. Because I know a lot of the things that happen early in our lives tend to shape us as we kind of move on, and particularly for a songwriter, I in reading through Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, your memoir, there's a lot of pain early on in your life from growing up. You grew up in a really rough part of Philly. Your parents split up. That seemed to have a really harsh effect on your life. And yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, even your stint as working as a long haul trucker. I mean, these things shape us, and I'm really curious about how they have produced who you are today.
You know what? It's really weird. Like, uh, I don't understand. I really don't understand. Um, I see people sometimes that they go to a rehab or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, I've been doing heroin for or whatever their drug of choice is, whether it's alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever." And they're just like, "Yeah, man, I had a really rough childhood. My parents split up." You know what I mean? And I just sit there and I go, "Really? That's what pushed you over the edge to?" For me, man, it was like, I can say this. It was a bit of a turbulent period when my mom and dad split up for me. Um, but I got to be honest with you, like my parents, my dad, right up until he passed away in 14, like it was like work hard, just work hard, be persistent, just keep working, and whatever it is that you're shooting for, it'll happen. Just keep working, you know. And my mom was a don't take any guff type of person as well. Um, so yeah, we had some weird things like the Uncle Jack situation. Um, but I gotta be honest with you, I think the 2 things that really kind of shaped me as a human being, I guess, to some degree, would be the fact that I got married to my son's mother at a very young age. She already had a daughter. And, as much as like I had friends in the past, like, dude, you're getting married, you're a musician, all these chicks are going to be. I think it just kind of grounded me. It just really made me kind of be like, all right, I'm a nuts and bolts thing. I love doing what I do for a living, but when I come home, I'm I have a wife, I have a kid, and I need to take the trash out. I need to drive my kid to school. I need to, so I was always kind of grounded there. And then I think the second most influential thing on my life was when I really kind of learned a valuable lesson with the music industry when whether I left or I got fired or whatever the deal was with Motley. I saw how people treated me when I had the gig. I mean, all I had to do, like, even at rehearsal, like, just put a cigarette in my mouth, and like three people were, our crew guys were there with a lighter. You know what I mean? So I was really kind of pampered, and I had, Gibson guitars were just giving me whatever I wanted, and sneaker companies, and then all of a sudden, when it was announced that Vince was coming back, it was like I was like a leper. And I think if you read the book, you know that story that I'm going to tell you about my son, and just being so grateful that I came up and hung out with him on Christmas Day. That he just said, Dad, thanks for coming and hanging out with us, and he told me he loved me, and it really just made me snap out of the funk that I was in. And I went, you know what? This is what it's all about. Like, it's family, a few friends, those friends that'll tell you when you're being an asshole, you know? And ever since then, it's like, I just don't, I just try to do the best that I can as far as my writing goes. I try to do the best that I can when it comes down to actually recording the songs. And then when I turn them over to the record company or the managers or whatever, I just kind of keep my fingers crossed and hope they know what they're doing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's the best you can do. So that I would say those two things, yeah, there's obvious shit in my childhood, that was rough. And, I never was kind of given anything. My parents weren't wealthy, so it's not like, I was given chunks of money to go pursue my career. Um, but those two things were probably the biggest things in my life that actually helped keep me grounded and gave me a better perspective on just life in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I'm sure came in handy when you were in LA at kind of the heart of the hair metal era when it seems like everything I've read, every documentary I've seen, every interview I've watched, it seems like shit was just off the rails in the music industry in LA in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I got there in '85 or '86, and I think it was '85. And you got these promoters who are like, okay, you're going to pay us to play. And it wasn't, basically what they did is they gave you 100 tickets, at 10 or 15 bucks a ticket. And the day that you showed up for sound check, you had to hand them the value of whatever those 100 tickets were. And if you didn't, you were fucked because you basically signed a contract. Yeah, all right. So it made you go out and promote yourself. So again, on that, like I had difficulty with it in the beginning because I came from Philadelphia where I was getting paid to play cover songs, really good money. And then it's like, wait, what? I got to pay you? But on the flip side of it, it really made you go out and hustle, and it made you promote yourself. And so for that, the glass isn't half empty, it's half full. You know what I mean? I tried to look at the positive part of it, and, we did it. But all these promoters are like, yeah, dude, you know, what you need to do is you need to play a couple times and just have like announce it on stage that you're having a party back at your house. And, I was like, well, that doesn't sound like fun, whatever. I did it once, and I probably had 150 people, got out, word got out, party, blah, 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 and bought a bunch of beer. And then at the end of the day, there was literally people walking out of my house with like coffee mugs, silverware. One chick was in the bathroom, like, sorry about that plane. Yeah, one chick was in the bathroom going through my wife's feminine products and putting them in her purse. And I go, this is bullshit. Fuck you guys, everybody out. And I never did it again. I'm like, fuck it. I'll just go down to Sunset and I'll do it that way. But it was pretty wild, man. It was like everybody was about palm tree hair, as minimal clothing as possible, and parties.
And from playing with Ratt to obviously, playing being the front man for Mötley for an album and touring with the band. I mean, and I know you were not thrilled with your portrayal in I've read some of your comments about the portrayal in that in the show about based on the book,
The
right?
dirt. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, it just seemed like Mötley was the quintessential completely off the rails band.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Everybody's like, oh, when they were working with Corabi, they were all like squeaky clean, and it's like, no, not necessarily. There were still little momentary lapses of judgment, throughout that. I was with the band for 5 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were still momentary lapses of judgment, but it was fun, dude. Like, and again, that's another thing. I sit and I unfortunately I see, like I'll do interviews and a snippet will go to some of those other websites, and these fans are like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, for a guy that doesn't want to talk about Motley, he sure talks about Motley a lot, and or it's like, oh Jesus Christ, 30 years, the guy's got nothing better to talk about. That one thing. And but again, I'm pretty direct. If I'm asked a question, I'm going to answer it. But I had a great time with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
My biggest regret, and it's just the way those guys are, and I've accepted it. When you're in the circle, it's like the family Fokker family circle. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When you're in the circle, you're in. They love you to death. But when you're out of the circle, it's like you're not even a passing thought. And that's the part that sucks. Because I know Nikki and I have had some issues in the past, but I like the guy. I like Nikki. I think he's talented. I think he was the brainchild behind that whole thing. I love Tommy. I mean, I love all those guys. Mick, Vince. Vince and I are fine. If Vince walked up here right now, he'd give me a hug and we'd probably sit and have a cocktail or two together. But you know, that's the part that I missed the most, was that because I had 5 years of seeing those guys every day.
Yeah,
And
the
yeah, the
camaraderie.
camaraderie, the brotherhood, the buddy thing. And I kind of missed that, but I just, I text Mick. I mean, Mick and I will exchange, text conversations in a few days because his birthday's coming up, mine's coming up. Texted Vince when I heard about his plane, the plane crash. His girlfriend was on the plane, so I actually texted her to see if she was all right. I texted Tommy to see if he was all right during the fires in LA just a month or so ago. And, I'd love to sit down and talk with Nikki and go, hey, dude, look, man, whatever, fuck that shit. It'd be nice to be able to pick up the phone and go, hey, Six, how your kids? How you doing? What's going on? How you been? If I'm ever in Wyoming, man, I'd love to stop by and see you, kind of a deal. But, unfortunately, it's up to him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk. Let's move into to the Daisies because I know the band has. This is your second stint technically in the band, although you're kind of seen as the front man of the band. You always have been since the band became known. But how did you end up? I mean, it's kind of a super group to a degree. I mean, you've got guys that have some great chops that have been in some amazing bands like with Whitesnake and drumming. I know your current drummer was with Steven Tyler, but how did you ultimately end up in the Dead Daisies?
Actually, Marco called me. It's funny, just so for the record. So I guess technically you could say I'm the second and the fourth
Yeah.
singer.
Yeah.
um, but they had a singer prior to me, John Stevens from Australia, who
Yep.
was also I don't know how long he was with the band, but he was in excess for a while after much Michael Hutchins passed.
Yep.
And John's an amazing singer. And there was some, I don't know what was going on with him, but there was some legal thing where uh, he couldn't go to, he couldn't go to, we were supposed to go to Cuba and John couldn't go. Um, so, um, Marco called me and he said, "Hey, I'm working with this band. We need a singer. Love to have you come out to LA and meet everybody." So I asked him who was in the band. And at the time, it was Richard and Dizzy from GNR, um, David Lowy, Marco Mendoza, and Brian Tishy. I knew I knew everybody in the band but David Lowy and Richard.
Yeah. And Lowy really put the band together, right?
Yes, he
Yeah.
started it with John Stevens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then so I flew out to LA. At first, I was a little like, I don't even know who these guys are. But then I went online and they had a couple songs out, and I was like, wow, it's pretty cool stuff. You know what I mean? So I went out and I met with them, and they just at the time they just said, hey, we got a couple shows we're doing in Cuba, and we need a singer. So I was like, I'm a bit of a history nerd, all the shit with JFK and Cuba and, the band. And like, so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I guess a couple weeks later, we flew over to Cuba. We rehearsed for a few days and we did two amazing shows. Uh, One was in I guess you could call it a nightclub, but it was like literally like 1,500, 2,000 people. And then we played in this kind of outdoor amphitheater that was like legendary for all the old 40s and 50s orchestras would go over and play in Cuba. And uh, it was like 5 or 6 thousand, and both shows were sold out. It was insane. The people were insane. The music that we were hearing over there was crazy. The food was amazing. We had such a great time.
And you guys were the first band after the Obama administration opened up relations with Cuba, first American band to go in and play a show there.
Yes. And there was like some sort of, hall pass from the American government. And then the whole time we were in Cuba, we had I forget the term they used, but it was like this woman, I think her name was Caroline, traveled with us. She was Cuban and she worked for the arts ministry, whatever. So she kind of traveled with us. They took us to a music school. We met a bunch of kids. Um, we did a bunch of news conferences, press, and all that stuff. And but it was funny. We had Bernard Fowler and Daryl Jones with us from the Stones, and all the fans and the press people were like, "Can you please tell Keith Richards and Mick Jagger to come to Cuba?" And I think they went over. I think it was the following year they did a huge free concert right on the beach in like Havana. And I think they had like 1 million people there. Like the entire country showed up to the Stones show. So it was a lot of fun. We did get a little bit of slack from it, from some Americans that thought we were
Sure.
being whatever.
How dare you?
Yeah, but it was like, you know what, dude, I don't fuck off. Like I'm not. I didn't go over there. Although one of the uh, uh, I think it was Raul Castro's sons came to see us play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Che Guevara's son was there as well. So we met him, but we weren't there to play for them. We were there to play for these fans that hadn't seen fucking a live American rock band ever. You know what I mean? And it was awesome. It was a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the new record, which there's kind of a cool backstory to this whole record in that you guys were just kind of recording an album that you put out in 24. I mean, that was, I think, the band's eighth album, and you would kind of fuck around with some blues standards and during breaks after rehearsal, and then ultimately this album, which is filled with some remarkable covers of blues standards, came out of that, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, and I'm going to apologize because it's a bit of a long answer, but
Yeah.
if you've seen the Netflix documentary, I believe it's called Sounds of Muscle Shoals or whatever, and it gives you the whole history. There was the first one, which was called Fame, and then that's where the Swampers came to recognition. That's where Dwayne Allman was discovered. And then that became so popular with a lot of the gospel, blues, R&B, early rock stuff.
Yeah, the Swampers left and they did their own thing.
And then they went across town and they started another studio on Jackson Highway, also in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah.
Which then became, that's where the Stones did Wild Horses, Give Me Shelter, like all that stuff. Bob Seger recorded there. Bunch of
Cher.
yeah, everybody. Rod Stewart, and then they actually, a couple of guys left there and went to Nashville. Well, the studio that Marty purchased when he moved here, Marty Fredrickson, was the third studio in that chain. It used to be called Quad, and then he changed it. I want to say it's called Sienna or Sierra. It's after his daughter. He named it after his daughter. But we recorded Make Some Noise there. We did Burn It Down there. And we started writing for what became Light 'Em Up. And then we had, prior to going in there, we were all kind of discussing where we should go. And we're like, well, we're going to be in Nashville, man. It'd be really cool if we could go to like Muscle Shoals and do some tracking down there. It's only 2 hours away. So that's what we did. Our manager worked it out where we had, I believe, 9 days down there.
Yeah.
So I have a tour bus sized motorhome. I packed everybody in the motorhome. We drove down. And it was awesome because the guys all stayed in the hotel that the Rolling Stones stayed in when they were there. And, so it was kind of a bucket list thing. But at night, they also, the studio, it's a functioning studio, but they also do museum tours. And it's around dinner time. So we would take a dinner break and people would come in, they do their little studio tour and, and then after dinner, a couple glasses of wine or whiskey or whatever, we're like, hey, let's go back. I don't want to sit at the hotel and watch TV all night. Let's jam. And it's just one of those things. Well, what do you know? Besides the obvious, and it was like Crossroads, but we were familiar with like the Skinner version or the Cream version, or Born Under a Bad Sign, the Cream version, or the Pat Travers version. So we just start jamming, and Marty's like, you know what? This sounds pretty cool. So everybody started talking about it. We're like, well, fuck, we're here. We're not brain dead. We can do some writing during the day, and we can do other stuff at night. And we wound up just kind of really breaking a song down, arranging it, and then, just once we had an arrangement, lay it down. And really it's really mostly live off the floor. It's just a bunch of, kind of inebriated, a bunch of inebriated old guys just doing their versions of a bunch of blues tunes.
But there's something I loved that you guys recorded it live. And for people who don't understand the differentiation, we're not talking about a live record with a crowd. We're talking about essentially the band together playing as if it's a live situation. The entire room is mic'd around you, whereas the traditional way of recording is you track each instrument separately and different, but it adds a certain energy that is really hard to replicate unless you're in a live setting. Maybe you have an audience, but it's really, I mean, the vibe in a live record, there's something that's just absolutely electric, don't you think?
Yeah, it's great because you can see, there was some stuff even that I played guitar on. Marty would come into the room, like if we're like, oh, hey, it'd be cool to put some, congas or something on this end part, and so Marty would come into the room with us. His son, Evan, would hit the play button and record. But it was cool. We were kind of cueing off of each other. Hey, Doug had put his hand up and it was like, okay, he's finished with the solo, come back in again. So, sorry, buddy. No rhyme or reason for anything, but I really do love the energy uh, recording that way. But again, to be honest with you, we've done, there was some overdubs.
Sure.
But we've done every Dead Daises record that way.
Okay.
Like we would set up shop, get the tones, spend a whole day with the tones, and then, okay, let's work on this song. And we would map it out. And then Marty go, okay, I think we got it. Let's track it. And we would do, 2-3 takes from top to bottom, and then pick the one that we liked, maybe one had a little more energy than the others or whatever. But we kind of done every record that way. It's the whole band is sitting in a room together and we're just going.
Yeah. What I think is really cool about the songs you guys chose as well is that a lot of them have really interesting history to them. Like Black Betty, everybody knows the Ram Jam version, but it's an old African work song. I think the first recorded version was by a guy was at a prison in Texas by a guy named James. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Lead Belly did it, but now it's weird. I sent it to my manager because it's like the Ram Jam version, and then there was Lead Belly's. Now, recently, there's been a couple of new versions.
Yeah. I think Larkin Poe did a version of it as well. And
yes, and there's a band, Spider or something, I believe from Australia. They did almost a Nine Inch Nails-y kind of version of it. But it's really weird. There's a weird history. Like you said, it was an old, like a lot of the slaves used to sing it.
Yeah.
The prison chain gangs would sing it.
Which is where a lot of gospel music comes from. So it's
right. But according to this thing, there was an even earlier version of it where it wasn't even called Black Betty. It was something like Swing My Hammer.
Yeah.
Swing my hammer, hammering, swing my hammer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So nobody really knows the exact origins, who wrote it, where it came from. But that was one of the funny things about it. We were listening. We were like, well, none of us wanted to do any of the songs the way we grew up listening to them. Like Skinner's version, it's been done. And it's a great version. Well, let's not do it exactly the way Skinner did. So we would go back, and I was shocked that there was, other than the Ram Jam version, every other version was just vocals. There was no music.
Yeah, all a cappella stuff. I know one version that I found was two academics that had gone to a prison camp in Texas that just recorded the guy. They let these guys go into the prison yard and they recorded him there. But even you've got like The Thrill Is Gone, which most people know the B.B. King version, but that was originally done by Roy Hawkins in, I think like 51. I mean, like I said, there's such cool history behind almost every tune on the album.
And it's weird because I've been saying it over and over again, but it's funny to me, and I could be wrong with this. There's probably some old blues purists that are going to argue with me till I'm blue in the face, but like to me, the blues were like almost an underappreciated American art form. Nobody gave a shit about half of those artists
Until they were dead.
until the records went overseas, and then the Brits got a hold of it and retweaked it and sent it back over, and everybody was like, "Oh, this When the Levee Breaks song, this is fucking awesome." And it's like Robert Plant and those guys are like, obviously you've never heard the Memphis Mini version from 1929, but Foghat, like when I grew up as a kid, 13, 14 years old. I just remember seeing Foghat on like Don Kirshner's rock concert doing I Just Want to Make Love to You. And I just thought they were the coolest thing ever. And then I find out it's an old blues cover. You
Oh
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I mean, Clapton, Jimmy Page, and Keith Richards. Basically, if you just took the three of those guys and what they have done for blues pre 1950, it's unbelievable. And songs that those people and their families never made any money off of because they did. To your point, they didn't become popularized until the British invasion in the 1960s. With guys like Clapton and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and players like that. You're
Yeah,
100%
and
right.
it's weird. I just watched this brilliant documentary on Brian Jones, and there's a point in there where they had started out as a blues band, and
Yeah.
the reason why we did Little Red Rooster is because David Lowy said the first song that I ever heard by the Stones was Little Red Rooster. So, but it talks about their history with the blues, and Brian Jones was really the antagonist for that whole thing. But they were offered a TV show, I believe. I believe it was in England. It could have been in America. They were supposed to do this TV show, and they said the only way we'll do it is if and I don't know if it was John Lee Hooker or if it was Muddy Waters, but they're like, the only way we're doing it is if this guy does the show with us. And it was like all of a sudden, all these young Brit teens are like, wow, who's this guy? You know what I mean? So that's what I like. A lot of the songs that are on our record are actually songs that we heard by the Brits that made us appreciate the blues.
Yeah.
So we've always done a tip of the hat historically on every Dead Daisies record to the 70s guys that we grew up with. Yeah, we just took it a step further and went back and just said, all right, you know what? Let's tip the hat to the guys that influenced our heroes.
Yeah, and of course we should, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the lead single off the album is of course Crossroads, Robert Johnson's tune that again Eric Clapton brought that back
Yes, sir.
into the popular vernacular back in I think it was the 90s when he did that, but
Well,
he did
actually,
it well before that too.
they did a version of that early on. I remember hearing a live version of that with Cream.
Yep.
So you're talking late 60s,
Oh
early
yeah.
70s, you know what I mean? Probably late 60s. But yeah, it was like I never even heard that thing before.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we have the Brits to thank for that one.
Yep. So I know the band has uh a lot of touring set up. And you guys are going to Europe. My understanding is that you guys just booked a big tour in Europe. So tell us what to expect from the Dead Daisies moving forward once the full record comes out.
Well, hopefully we're hoping that we turn some people on to some maybe uh, artists that they weren't quite familiar with. Um, Show people where honestly, like one other thing I've been saying, other than classical music, the blues is the grandfather of all of it. Like rock and roll, country music, even rap and all the shit that came later, you know what I mean? Like it all started with the blues. So, uh, you know, we just want to go out and have some fun, maybe enlighten some people about some of these old artists that got the raw end of the deal, to be honest with you. And, you know, but our sets are probably, not probably, it's a little bit of everything. We try to touch base on, you know, most everything we've done. Even the Glenn stuff. Like I try to sing a song or two of Glenn's. Hopefully he's not upset with me, but hopefully I do it justice. But we try to give the audience a little bit of everything.
Right on. This will not be a David Lee Roth and Sammy situation where David would not sing anything that Sammy had done with Van Halen.
No, and it's whatever. I can't.
Whatever, exactly.
I can't unpeel somebody else's onion. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on there, but
yeah. Well, John, before I let you go, I know you're also working on a solo record. Tell us a little bit about that and when people can expect to hear that.
I'm actually working on it right now. Like I've got a few songs done already. I got a home studio. Unfortunately, I learned Pro Tools very late in life, so I still work at a snail's pace. But I'm hoping that I can do something that is, I don't like repeating myself. So I just want to do something that's just super organic, just 70s. I don't know. Just I don't know. Like to be honest with you, I've been obsessed lately with. I have a motorcycle. Oh, see, I don't know if you can see it right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I got two of them, and my wife and I've been hitting that, and I've been really listening to Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. It's called Ultimate Hits, and I just sit and listen to his lyrics and his melodies, and I'm like, God, the guy was so great. But again, like I was telling my manager, I said I would really like to do something that's like a little more age appropriate. Let's face it, I'm 66 now. So I can do the rock thing with the Daisies. Now I just want to be a little more musical and a little more organic and just maybe not full tilt. You know what I mean? So I don't know what I'm gonna come up with. The few of the things I have, like one song that's almost like another blues song, couple acoustic driven ideas that does have some electric guitar in them as well, but it's more like acoustic-y. So we'll see. I don't know. I think it's funny though, when I did that song Cossi Bella a few years back, a lot of people commented on that doesn't sound anything like you. But it's unfortunate. Most people said, well, I kind of dig it. It doesn't sound like you, but I like it. And that's the thing. I think there's a few more layers, not to repeat myself. There's a few more layers to this onion than just the Mötley record or what I do with the Dead Daises, or, you know what I mean? So I'd like to have some fun with it and just experiment.
Right on, man. Peeling that onion. John Corabi, the Dead Daisies. New record about to drop. Thank you so much for joining us. The book is Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. It can be found anywhere, Amazon, what have you. It's a really interesting read, a lot of fun.
And the Daisies record is called Lookin for Trouble, and that'll be out May 30th.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being the Loadout. Really appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, hosted by Atomic Junction frontman Aaron Perlett. Find all of our episodes and more at loadoutmusic.com.